How do you know that you're hearing from your higher self or maybe even your guides? How can you tell the difference between your voice and your higher self's voice or your true self's voice? Stay tuned to this episode because I'm going to share a little bit of insight about how you can determine whether it's you talking or your higher self and guides. Welcome to the Soul Alignment Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Angie, and I'm inviting you to explore the depths of self-sabotage, limiting mindsets, and the beliefs that hinder our progress in life. Through intuitive messages I receive from my spirit team, I share profound insights to help you live authentically and break free from these limitations. Join me now as we uncover all the keys to living your best life. Welcome back. My name is Angie, and I'm your Soul Alignment Mentor, bringing you intuitive messages I receive from my spirit team to help you align with your most authentic and highest self. So I hear a lot from clients that I work with one-on-one. I'm not sure I'm hearing from my guides. I'm not sure that I'm able to understand what my higher self is saying to me, or maybe what my intuition is trying to get me to know or hear. And this has been something that in the beginning, I also struggled with, to be able to know for sure I am hearing from my spirit team. And if you haven't watched the video I did prior to this one about connecting with your guides and hearing your guides, and how they explained to us that really it's hearing from yourself. It's about trusting yourself to be able to trust the messages that come through. But once you get to that point where you are starting to really trust yourself a little bit more, how do you really know that this is a message that you're getting from your guides? One of the things that often happens is we are coached and taught to sit in meditation and listen and try to get contact with our guides or from our higher self. And I agree with that. I completely agree that we need to quiet the mind, be still, listen to our guides. And over, that is what the message will be from our spirit team. As somebody that does quantum healing hypnosis, when I do a session with a client and we go into hypnosis and talk to the subconscious mind, to the higher self is always saying, they just need to be more quiet. They just need to be more still. They need to be meditating more. They need to take time to listen, because they can't hear us if they're not taking time to listen. But what if you're doing that and you're meditating and you are taking the time to listen? How do you know that you're actually hearing this voice that is your true self or your higher self or your guides? And this is something I want to help people understand, is that we're all different. We all have different gifts. We all have different ways of doing things in our lives. We might be doing the same activity, but the way I do it will be completely different than somebody else. Even if it looks similar, it doesn't mean we're going to be doing it the same way. The way I dribble a basketball may not be how somebody else dribbles a basketball. So we can't compare ourselves to other people and how they're doing something based on the way that we're doing it. And I think we get really caught up in this, and we start to try to mimic those people around us that we see that maybe have achieved this, or maybe appear to have been able to move into hearing their guides or hearing their higher self. And here's what I have come to understand in working with my spirit team. We all can do it. There's no one here on earth that is more special than another. The hierarchy and the belief system that one person has more gifts than another is just something we've made up in our human understanding. Just like we made up fear, just like we've made up darkness. The things that we make up in our human existence, we then focus on and we look at and we believe that to be true. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to let go of all those ideas and programming of what we've been taught to be true, what we've been taught to believe that has to happen, and coming back to the original form of who we really are, which is our higher self, which is our spirit. In that place, we are pure light. We are pure love. We are we're untainted by our ego and our human existence. And the reason that we even come to be a human is so we can become separated from that. So the purpose of being here is to not have continual contact with that part of who we are, with our higher self or our spirit team. Because if we did, we wouldn't have the ability to be a human. We wouldn't have the ability to make free will choices. We wouldn't have the ability to learn from experiences that we go through. Now, our guides are always guiding us and supporting us to make sure that we are protected or on the right path. But we always have a choice to not take that path. We always have a choice to follow another one or follow after greed or selfishness or pridefulness or our ego's desires. That is part of our human existence. And it's not good or bad. It just means that that's what we came here to be, a human, to do. And those of us that are waking up, that are going through a spiritual awakening, we are coming back into understanding that that part of who we are is not really our true self. And so as we're trying to get back in touch with our higher self, get back in touch with our spiritual understanding and existence, we have this duality about ourselves where we have our ego mind and our subconscious mind. Our subconscious mind is what is connected to our higher self. And the subconscious mind is our intuition. It's how it guides and leads us. So the little nudges you get in your life, or the butterfly feelings, or the random thoughts of, I feel like I shouldn't go this way to work today, even though I go this way every single day. And those things that just pop up, and then you find out later, like, oh my gosh, I'm glad I didn't do that. I'm glad I listened to that inner knowing that came up, because it protected me, or it brought me to something I needed to see or I needed to know, whatever it might be, that part of your intuition was guiding you towards. And this can happen all the time. However, this is not something that in like on everyday human circumstance is going to be super like we're not going to notice it all the time, because we're not supposed to, because we are here to learn to be a human, and then we go back into spirit and we take with us the lessons that we had here. So if we are constantly just focused on our spiritual connection and understanding, and we're not actually living a human life, then we're missing the whole point of being here in the first place. Now, as we are shifting into higher consciousness, and as we move from 3D to 4D and then eventually into 5D, we will be a little bit more connected to that part of ourselves, and it will guide us even more. And we're seeing this happen. And this is why you're even here listening to this video, is because you feel a prompting to get to know this part of yourself, because you want to do the right thing, because you want to follow your intuition, because you want to be in integrity and love. I truly believe the more you are connected to your higher self, the more you're connected to your spirit and your team that you work with, the more loving you become, the more open and vulnerable you become, more authentic you come, and the more trusting you become of your higher self, of your spirit team. When you're disconnected from that, you may not even know that you have the ability to call on something or to listen to your body to make a decision. So here are some clues on understanding if you really are hearing from your higher self or your spirit team. Many times, if there's a message that is trying to come through and you're not in a place where you've been meditating a lot, or maybe you just started and you're still, kind of wondering about, like, is this real? How do I know when they're talking to me? One of the true signs that you can always trust that your intuition, your higher self, so your intuition and higher self are the same thing. So when I say that together, that's what I mean. And then your spirit team, which is also connected to your higher self, is a message that repeats itself. It's a feeling of, I can't stop thinking about this. And I'm going to give you an example of when this happened to me. My spiritual awakening, I would say it really started to expand in 2016. it had started prior to that in little ways, in little forms. And I think that because I do have free will, I didn't always take the path towards my awakening. But in 2016, it was just like blown wide open. My guides were just very clear with me that this is the direction you're supposed to take. And for me, in that moment, it was as if my entire body shifted and I could feel a change in the way that I understood myself and the world. It was almost like I had uh, scales or blinders on my eyes and I couldn't see the truth around me. And then all of a sudden they came off and I was like, oh my God, like this is what it really looks like. This is what freedom looks like. This is what living in alignment with your true self, your spirit self looks like. And so at that point, my ability to connect with my higher self changed and I began to listen more. However, I didn't know I was doing that at the time. I didn't really comprehend that my higher self could even talk to me at that time and that I was my higher self. And so one of the things that started to come through was right around that time that I had my awakening in 2016 was I started to get this overwhelming feeling to reach out to my dad. And I saw my dad at Christmas and my birthday a couple times a year, but we didn't have like a super close relationship. My parents divorced when I was very young, around the age 4 or 5. My dad remarried within about 6 months of that. He moved in with his new wife. He had two daughters. I have two stepdaughters with them, or two stepsisters with them. And then my mom ended up remarrying a year or so later to a very narcissistic, abusive man. And so there was a lot of control on my mom and my stepdad's side that kept me from having much of a relationship with my dad. And I grew up believing my dad hated me, did not love me, didn't want anything to do with me. And so I kind of protected myself by pulling myself back. Now, throughout my life, there were times I would see him more than other times, but there was never really a connection that I built with him. And at this time in my life, I don't believe I had any contact. And I kept hearing something in me saying, you need to reach out to your dad. And I was scared because I'm like, why would I do that to somebody that I don't believe cares about me, that doesn't want me in their life? And so I kind of try to push that feeling away. But then something came up because again, and the same feeling as you need to reach out to your dad. And then I started having this weird feeling that he was about to pass away. And I wanted to shake that as well. I kept pushing aside, oh my gosh, I'm making this up. It's not a big deal. I literally tried to ignore this. And it got to the point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. For about 3 to 4 months, almost daily, I kept getting this prompt, reach out to your dad, reach out to your dad, reach out to your dad. And eventually it became so uncomfortable in my body that I had to do it. So I reached out and I ended up going over to visit him. And that was the beginning of a complete shift and change within my relationship with him. I reached out to him and I began to visit him out of this prompting that I was having in my intuition. And within 6 months of reaching out and building a relationship with him again, he was diagnosed with cancer. I got to have very amazing, significant time with my dad the last 3 years of his life because I listened to that voice, because I reached out, because I trusted that intuitive part of myself to guide me. And I got to be there through all of his treatment for cancer. Unfortunately, he did pass away in 2020, in September 2020. But I don't have any regrets because I listened to that voice that was prompting me to do that. And so for me, I came to the understanding of if something continues to come up and I can't shake it, that means I need to listen to it. And this will happen in all kinds of things. If there's a feeling that you can't shake, that is one of the first signs that you need to listen to your intuition. Get quiet, listen to it. If it is something positive and loving, then that is your higher self. It may be causing you fear, just like it was fearful. I had fear in reaching out to my father, but it was out of love. It was out of compassion. It wasn't out of envy or trying to revenge or anything like that. The higher self will never guide you in anything that is negative or hurtful towards another human. It will always be beneficial for you. It doesn't mean you won't have fear, because it pushes us out of our comfort zone to help us grow and to help us learn things. But it will always be loving and positive. So that's one of the first things that you can pay attention to in your body is, if this feeling, if this sensation does not go away and you keep tuning into it and you keep tuning into it and you notice it, then it probably is your higher self trying to get you to do something or to help guide you into doing something. The other thing that you can begin to do is start to learn how to get to know your own energy field by sitting in meditation and paying attention to your energy. And I teach this to my clients when I work with them. And you literally just have to understand, how do I feel? What does my energy feel like? And then as you continue to grow and you ask your higher self to speak to you or your spirit team, you will feel a shift in your energy when they come in that will feel different than your normal energy. For me, for example, when I'm getting a message from a loved one or a spirit on the other side, when I'm doing a mediumship reading, or if I'm getting a message for myself, my whole body's energetic system will completely shift. I will get chills. I will get this kind of floaty feeling. I will feel as if like this urgent need to speak something will come up in me. Spirit often speaks much quicker than what we do as humans. And so a message may flash very quickly for you. And you may think, oh, did I make that up? But the thing is the more you acknowledge the message, even if you don't know if it is a message or not, the more they're able to get the messages to you, because they notice that you are attempting to hear and that you're working with them to get that message. So when I'm doing a mediumship reading with somebody, the messages come through very quickly. And so I just acknowledge the message without questioning whether it's right or wrong. And probably 90% of the time, it is an accurate message, but I don't know why that message is coming through. So I can't interpret it through my ego mind. I just have to trust it. And this is going to be the same thing for you when you're trying to hear a message for yourself. When you're meditating and you're hearing from your guides, and your guides are not going to just sit around and talk to you all day. There's not a need for a message every time you meditate. So meditation is not about trying to get messages. Meditation is about teaching your mind to be still. So release the idea that I have to have a message every time I sit down, or I have to have contact with my guides every time I sit down, because that's not going to happen. Just like we don't have contact with our friends every single moment of every day. This is not how we're going to work with our higher self and guides, because like I said, we're supposed to be living our human life, and they're not going to intervene on that. They're going to let us have that human experience. But in the times that we are meant to hear a message, in the times that we're seeking one, or we need to have something, they will provide that. Now, one of the ways that they'll speak to you is through your own voice. You may feel like you're the one talking in your head, but examine what they're saying, or what your mind is saying. Is it loving? Is it kind? Is it encouraging? Is it pushing you towards something that would better yourself or someone else's life? If it is those good and loving things, then that is likely your higher self encouraging you and speaking to you. Your higher self will never put you down or say negative things to you. That is your ego self. That is the human idea and programming that you have built up in your understanding throughout your human life. So release the need to distinguish whether it's right or wrong, and just focus on the loving messages that you get. And it may not be anything significant that we think in our ego mind is significant. It may simply be, I love you. It may simply be, I'm proud of you. It may simply be, I'm with you. And that's that. We need to accept those messages. And the more we're in that, the more that we can open up the communication with our higher self and with our team. So moving back again to how we all have specific gifts, we are not all going to have visions. We're not all going to be able to see things when we're communicating with our higher self, our spirit team. We're not all going to have sensings or feelings, and we're not all going to have just sudden knowings. We don't all work the same. And so try not to determine whether you're having a message based on how somebody else gets a message. And this is why it's really important to get to know yourself, to get to know your own energy. And you do that by sitting in meditation. So I have way more to speak about this, but I am going to leave it at this for now and leave you with an assignment this week or when you see this message. I encourage you to try to sit down at least 5 minutes a day and just sit in stillness, sit in quiet, sit in your own energy. See if you can feel your energy. If you're having a hard time, reach out and schedule an appointment with me, and I can work with you to see about how I can coach you in feeling your energy. But start there. Start by just being in stillness. Just start by feeling your own energy filled. And when you get to that point and you're practicing that enough, your vibration will rise because it has to when you do that. And then you will be open and more have a more ability to connect with your higher self and spirit team. So that is the first step that I will encourage you to take before you start working on hearing the actual messages. Until we meet again, I wish you the best day, night, evening, whatever time it is for you. I send you all to universal love. Namaste.